And believe me, when people start understanding what's going on, it's just going to be like that movie They Live. This one can see, and he can see, and he can see, you know, and that's what's going to happen. Now, we need that kind of an awakening, you know, because right now, of course, this Wall Street uprising really means that things will never really be the same. You know, it started a fire, people are really going to be there, and I think they're beginning to even wake up that it's not Obama, it doesn't Bush, you know, they're realizing that it's not the presidents, they're just puppets. They're, you know, they're the cog in the wheel. You know, you want to believe in someone, you want to understand, but it's just theater. I mean, I hate to say it. I bought it too. You know, I could spend some time, and I probably will, today, talking about how I came to my awakening, and the reason why I'm doing this, and the reason why I wish that everybody does this. Because if every American took the time, in my case, 4 hours a week, well, maybe a lot more because I do a lot of work. I mean, I'm very committed and dedicated to this awareness raising. I mean, I sort of live, sleep, and breathe it because I know what it means for my son, who's 12. I know what it means for his children. I know what it means for humanity. I realize that we're in some serious trouble here, and it's no joke. And we can sugarcoat it if you like, but it's not going to be a pretty, when the bottom falls out, and it's going to fall out, it's not going to be pretty. But let's identify this time, unlike, see, this is a very important point. In 1929, when the stock market crashed, it had already been 15 years since the J.P. Morgan interests through the steel and shipping community and all of their interests and the banking interests, and they got together and hired a study or did a study to find out how many papers and news organizations at the time it would be needed to basically more or less control generally the daily press and their opinion or the policies of the daily press. And they spent, I think, $2 million, which was a fortune of money in 1915, and came up with a discovery that it would cost, that it would require 25 of the top newspapers would need to be purchased and acquired. And in 1915, you can look this up on record, it's incredible. The transactions of these news organizations from the New York Times across through you know, Boston Globe and all of these other original, there were 25 papers that were originally put into the mix. I actually notated them directly in my film Shadow in Darkness on the We Are Change Freedom First Films YouTube page. And it included also, of course, London papers. Now, the Hearst papers were of course implicated in his own right. I mean, he had the Hearst. He was the magnate, and of course, a globalist through and through, yellow journalist, and absolute fraudmonger. He was the one that gave the people the conception that we needed to go to war after the Maine was blown up in Havana Harbor, which was a false flag. So this is how the media had started to use influence over the people to control them. And that's a great example right there. And it's being done today. It's nothing new. This is not something that is going to change anytime soon. And I think that mostly you have people like George Soros, and then of course you have the Murdoch and all these other globalists who are conspiring to basically give the same news feed from Reuters, which is owned by the Rothschilds. So you're getting this feed of information massively through the mass media of now internet and print, as well as the magazines through Reed Elsevier, which I'm going to, of course, go into in detail again in just in a few minutes. But you have them controlling the media to a great extent, owning 70% of the largest media outlets in the world. So when you do that, you're going to really be able to control the opinion and tell people what they like. I mean, really, did you ever think about it? Did you ever actually think, you know, why you like, hey, I want to buy that coat. I want to buy that car. I want to buy that brand of vodka. Because they pushed it on you. Because they told you to buy it. Because they sold you. And you liked it. It appeals to you. But they give you the choice to take from. It's not like you have your own choice. Now, Jay Rockefeller said, I believe it was a couple of years ago, maybe more than a couple of years ago, that because everyone's waking up like we are, and people are doing what I'm doing, and thousands of other people are doing what I'm doing. I'm not unique here, and I take no credit for what I do. I do this for my country. I do this for humanity. I do this for the people that I love in my life. It's simply that. Unfortunately, we do live in a society where we have been brainwashed to be consumers. And they push these things on you. I mean, I remember being, I was asleep most of my life, and, having to buy the right pair of jeans, or having to buy, when it was school time. Like, think about when you're growing up, having the right T-shirt, or going to the right concert, or all of this stuff that you say, well, yeah, that's just because I chose to like it. Yeah, that's right. You chose to like it from what they gave you to choose from. But now, as Jay Rockefeller pointed out, that you have the internet gives alternative viewpoints that they don't want you to know about or think about. They don't want you to say, let's question the Federal Reserve, let's question sound money, let's question why do we have recessions and depressions, let's question the Panic of 1920, let's question the Panic of '07, which supposedly was the reason for the Federal Reserve to protect the markets and to protect the I mean, it's such horse shit. Then they expand the money supply, then they contract it, and they had it in 1920. There was 7 years later there was a recession. So they're supposed to stop that from happening. And then after that, and of course we had the Great Depression. Because they realized it was like they were beta testing. Let's see how we can play with this. Let's do this. And then they built us up again. And through very devious alliances with the military-industrial complex, it has grown to be, America has, even this, an American that is completely, or somebody that is completely asleep, can recognize that America has become the policeman of the country, of the world. And maybe they don't realize that it's happening to themselves in their own country, unless, of course, they're a victim of the 2.2 million people in prison, 700,000 of them on crimes that were committed without really any harm to anyone else, which can quote unquote be called victimless crimes. So, I don't know. Sometimes I think that people are just so brainwashed by the fact that they like to buy these little trinkets, and they play into all the holidays, and they play into all of the, and it's tradition, that's true, and I'm not going to start knocking Christmas or any of these other, what they turn this into like a commercial thing, and certainly a lot of Christians would be, oh, thank you for saying that, But listen, personally, I think the whole thing is all about control. They don't really give you a choice in what you want or what you can have, even though you say, what are you talking about? There's abundance of choices, and there's this and that, and that's how the market works. And, well, you just try to open up a business and see if you can make it. 100 years ago, there was a better chance, because they haven't collectivized everything. I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to open up, for argument's sake, you want to open up a diner. Well, McDonald's is going to knock you out, basically, or whatever else. Or you want to open up In the food business, you're dominated by people, even in hospitalities, Applebee's, all these large chains. The small guy is really doesn't really have a long-term chance the way that it's going. And maybe people think that that's not a bad thing, but it's why we grew to be the country that we were. And I say were because we're no longer the country that we were. We stopped being really true America when I was probably about, I don't know, 2 years old. The 70s on, America was deindustrialized. I mean, people don't remember, well, New York was in all this financial trouble and there was garbage in the streets. Yeah, and then they talk about urban renewal, which we know turned into bullshit, which of course the CIA starts bringing the drugs in. It's like, it's very complicated, but once you understand it, you can put the pieces together. Imagine that you're looking at it this way, as a social controller. If you were a social controller, you would say, well, we want to deindustrialize. That's the goal. Because again, like everything in life, you have to have a goal, you have to have a plan. It's like a business plan. To be honest, they're actually executing a business plan, is really what they're doing. Cold-heartedly, of course. So you got the business plan, and you don't want the people really to realize that you're doing this on purpose. So what do? Well, you do it in the name of helping the poor, feeding the poor, ending poverty, wiping out disease. That's how you do it. Give us money for the WWF by the Nazi Prince Philip and Bernard, those criminals. Give money to the WWF, and that's not the World Wrestling Federation, everybody. It's the World Wildlife Fund. Give to them, yes. Give to United Way, give to UNICEF. Go ahead. You know it's good because they got Angelina Jolie to be the spokesperson, and you know that she must be good. She has 6 children, and they're all from different countries. She's the person, she's their perfect spokesmodel. And I have news for you, that's what she is. You know, from my research, she doesn't have anything to do with the New World Order. Her father is certainly wide awake and knows what's going on. I mean, I think he fears for his any work that he might want to continue to do. A lot of people in Hollywood are really awake and afraid to come out. And then the ones that do come out, you know, through their own behavior or whatever else, they're demonized, you know, like Charlie Sheen, like questioning 9/11. But Ed Asner came out questioning 9/11, of course, the fraud on 9/11 that they call this unprovoked attack, dastardly attack, whatever. You know, remember they changed the model. Excuse me, they changed the story, but the model it's from the same model. They just repeat it. We knew about Pearl Harbor, and it was the way to get us into the war. And again, remember the banks. The only objective for the bankers is war in the military-industrial complex, and then of course big pharma. But when you put all these things together, how do you deindustrialize a country? Well, you start by saying how wonderful Mao Zedong is. Yes, the genius Mao Zedong, as David Rockefeller wrote in A China Traveler in the New York Times in 1973. And you say, well, I think that Mao Zedong's is the greatest leader in history, and the advancements in China, no matter what the cost, I think, quote unquote, was certainly worth the effort. So Mao Zedong killed 80 million, some say even 100 million people. And you say, well, there's too many people. See, that's the other fraud. They get everyone to believe there's too many people. That's what they say, you know. And there's global warming, and we're making this carbon. All of a sudden, Earth Day, 1970. Oh, remember Earth Day, 1970. See, this is when it all really started to come to fruition. And it's our generation. It's our generation that is living under this. We're living under this. And they're socially controlling us, saying, you know, let's go green and all this other stuff. Meanwhile, there are safer and cleaner technologies. There's oil that could help save us now. I mean, I agree. Let us get away from fossil fuels and other and find alternatives that are better for our atmosphere. And believe me, when people start understanding what's going on, it's just going to be like that movie They Live. This one can see, and he can see, and he can see, you know, and that's what's going to happen. Now, we need that kind of an awakening, you know, because right now, of course, this Wall Street uprising really means that things will never really be the same. I could spend some time, and I probably will, today talking about how I came to my awakening and the reason why I'm doing this and the reason why I wish that everybody does this. Because if every American took the time, in my case, 4 hours a week, well, maybe a lot more because I do a lot of work. I mean, I'm very committed and dedicated to this awareness raising. I mean, I sort of live, sleep, and breathe it because I know what it means for my son, who's 12. I know what it means for his children. I know what it means for humanity. I realize that we're in some serious trouble here, and it's no joke. And we can sugarcoat it if you like, but it's not going to be a pretty. When the bottom falls out, and it's going to fall out, it's not going to be pretty. But let's identify this time, unlike, see, this is a very important point. You know, it started a fire, people are really going to be there, and I think they're beginning to even wake up that it's not Obama, it doesn't Bush, you know, they're realizing that it's not the presidents, they're just puppets. They're the cog in the wheel. You know, you want to believe in someone, you want to understand, but it's just theater. I mean, I hate to say it, I bought it too.